to the plant room, garden room, conservatory. We have many names for it today because it's so beautiful outside and I wanted a bit of sunlight while I film. So here we are. Today's video, I'm going to be talking you through 4 things that you can do when you want to change your career. 4 things that you can do when you're looking to change career to maybe help you figure out what on earth it is you want to do with your life. Now, that is never going to be a process that happens overnight, and I have well and truly lived that. To give you a bit of a background, if you've not already watched my video about career change, I'm 40, I've been a lawyer for 13 years, and I have for a while now been making a concerted effort to change up. June, could you be a bit more quiet, please? Thank you. I've been for a while now making a concerted effort to try and change my career. Is what it says on the tin, really. And at the moment, I'm kind of partway into that process. Essentially, I'm still working as a lawyer and I'm doing my new job on the side or part-time around my lawyering. So it's not a full career change yet, but I'm hoping at some stage it will be. I'll talk to you more about that another time and how that's going. But I wanted to hopefully give you some ideas on how to approach this. It's not a glamorous thing necessarily, changing your career. It can be a lot of hard work and it can be confusing, and it sounds a bit dramatic to say this, but also a bit lonely, because really, although there might be careers advisors out there, there might be friends and family you can talk to about it, really you're the only person who can figure out whether you want to do something or not. Apologies about the dog noise in the background. She's crying for some reason. I'm not completely sure what it is, but I think she just wants to chase the cat. Yes, all right. Everything's going to be fine. You guys aren't the stars of the show here, okay? You need to calm down. Calm down. Would it help you to sit here, would it? Okay. Everything's fine. It's just the cat, and you know him very well. I'm not sure we're going to get this video filmed in quite the quick way that I thought. What is it you want? You want to chase the light? Okay. Sorry, the dog kept running into the tripod. I'm sure it will happen again, but let's carry on. What I was saying was that I think sometimes having a career move, a career change, at any time in life really, can be sort of made out to be this sort of quite glamorous thing. And I suppose it can be. You know, people tell stories of changing from doing jobs that they absolutely hated, or that they'd been stuck in, or that they felt they could never leave, or where they were really the subject of quite horrible behaviour, and then moving on to something that they really love. And you see that, don't you, with people that have turned their hobbies into their job, which I love the idea of. We'll come on to that again. We'll come on to that again later. I think that that's brilliant. Unfortunately, it isn't what happened to me. And it might not be what happens to you. So yeah, I'm here to be as real as possible about the process of a career change. This isn't going to be the entire story. There's lots more to say. There will be more to say as time goes on. I'm sure there'll be questions from people and I'll try and answer those in future videos. But the main sort of crux of today's video is to talk about what I did and what my tips are for figuring out what on earth it is you want to do when you change careers. So, number 1, this seems pretty obvious, but we're here to do real talk. So there we go. Start with the reasons that you want or need a career change. That could be any number of things. Income, probably high up there on a lot of people's lists. Maybe you weren't earning enough, or you feel like you weren't being paid fairly or getting recognised for the amount of hours you were putting in. Money can be a massive factor when we're thinking about what job we want to do for the rest of our lives. Hours, also big consideration. Maybe the shift pattern doesn't work for you anymore. Maybe they weren't giving you enough hours. Maybe they were giving you too many hours. That could be a reason. Was your commute right? Was it too far? Was it too full of traffic? Was it, I don't know, down a toll road or something that means that you don't want to go that way anymore. The train prices have gone up. Any number of things could affect your commute. Some of us don't have one. Maybe that's what you're looking for. And I guess one of the bigger categories is job satisfaction and your enthusiasm for the work that you've been doing. Maybe that has changed for some reason. I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in a moment, because it's certainly one of the things that applied to me. And maybe there's a change in your ability to do the job that you've been doing. And that could be age related. It could be because it's affecting your mental or physical health in some way, or your mental or physical health has changed and it means that you cannot do that job anymore. There are countless reasons, aren't there, why you might want to change jobs, but write them down. That would be my advice. I always write stuff down. I'm a pen and paper girl. I make notes on my phone too, but pen and paper, get it all written out. Anything as small or as big as you can think of, pop them down. And the reason that we're doing that, this will give you a list of things that you want to look for in a new job, because you kind of just want to look for the opposite, or a variation, I suppose. So for me, it was reliability of income, a change, quite a large change in my enthusiasm for the work, and job satisfaction. It was becoming increasingly difficult to get the results I wanted for my clients. The delays in the system that I was working in were huge, which also affected my cash flow, which was a really big problem. And also, I suppose, perhaps more importantly than both of those things, the impact that both of those things were having on my mental health. Constant feelings of guilt, constant feelings of inadequacy, constant feelings of stress about not having the money that we needed to pay our bills and to buy food. That is the reality of the situation. I also needed the new work, the new career, the new job. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose. I needed the new job, the new work, the new career to fit in around my existing career, at least in the shorter term. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to just stop my job as a lawyer one day and start another job the next day and it be a smooth transition. I knew there'd be crossover, and potentially for quite a long time while I built up whatever the new work required in terms of a caseload or clientele or whatever. So that really needed to be something that was working from home, where I had control of my hours and control of when I did my work. So quite often I work now at the weekends and also during the evenings. I try not to very much, but I knew that I needed that to be possible because I have to give priority to my lawyer job. I need to be available for my clients and I need to be available for court appearances. Otherwise I can't do the job. So I knew that I needed to fit around that. So yeah, that first question of what is important to you, what is it that makes you want to leave your current career, will help you figure out what it is you're looking for in your new one. So that's number one. Number two, think about the skills that you've got. Again, it sounds really basic, but it's not quite as straightforward as you think. That could be skills from your current job, which obviously, depending on what your job is, could be anything. So if you're a music teacher, playing musical instruments, reading music, teaching, dealing with planning lessons, lots of things that I'm sure I'm not even aware of because I'm not a music teacher. But those things will be transferable skills from your job that you can take into a new environment, whether or not that involves teaching music. Obviously not all of them, but there will be transferable skills there. And also skills from your life. So skills from hobbies you have, which I mentioned earlier, skills from things that you're just enthusiastic about, or any extra study or courses you've taken. We're living in a world where there are courses available for basically anything these days. So this will give you an idea, kind of a pool of skills to help you figure out or narrow down what jobs you're going to be suitable for and what careers could potentially fit with the skills that you've already got. It'll also give you an idea of what you might need to upskill on. So do you have really great skills at being an electrician, but you just don't have your qualifications, so therefore you can't sign stuff off? Maybe you've learnt that around the house or whatever on the job doing something slightly different, and now what you really need to be able to change careers is to go and get qualified, get those certificates, whatever it is, in order to be able to sign stuff off in the future and apply for a job in that area. The thing I would say is, what about stuff that you're just naturally good at? You might not even think of it as a skill. Are you particularly organised? For me, I'm really good at complaining, which sounds odd. I don't mean to my friends and family, although I'm sure they'd probably say that I'm good at doing it often, whether or not it's successful. But I have had a thing over the years of successfully complaining about bad services or poor service, and getting really good compensation for that. Odd one, but I put it on my list. Are you naturally organised? Are you particularly good at making things with your hands? All that kind of thing. Anything like that. Many things that I won't even have considered, I'm sure, that you know you're good at, that might be something that you can bring to a new role. You need to think about those things. And hopefully that will all start to get you closer to thinking about what you might want to do. For me, being a lawyer has given me a lot of transferable skills. So, for example, digesting large pieces of information, large documents, having the confidence to deal with a wide variety of people, from judges to clients who couldn't speak English or maybe had a learning disability. And also as a self-employed person, I've done my accounting for the whole 13 years. I've done all my admin pretty much. I've had small amounts of support here and there from people, but I've never been able to afford somebody to type my work for me, so I do all of that. So my typing speed's pretty good. And also the overall things of running a business, of being pretty good at time management and dealing with those changing priorities as they come in. So all of that stuff went on my list. One other thing that I would encourage you to think about, anything that you've gained from doing voluntary work, any old jobs that you had perhaps when you were studying or at school, they're the same thing, studying or training for your current work. I think I mentioned hobbies already, but specifically stuff like photography, editing videos. I love making reels on Instagram to kind of romanticise my life, so I put that down on my list. And I've always loved creative writing. I've done a bit of copywriting kind of ad hoc professionally, so that went on my list. All of these things are great skills, and it's unlikely that you're going to end up using all of those skills for one job, but it will help you when you're thinking about the industry you want to go into, or even the particular role within an industry, to know what things you're going to be good at. What can you say about yourself that will make you impressive to other people looking to employ somebody? That's kind of what we're getting at. So, number 3, values and priorities. Now, you might feel like all of the stuff that we've just talked about actually doesn't get you any closer to working out what you want to do with your life, and I don't blame you. It didn't really help me. A lot of the kind of obvious job choices that came up when I had these lists felt a bit dry, a bit boring, something that I suppose essentially wouldn't have meaning for me, which was quite an important thing, really, but in a way I kind of felt like I could leave it to one side sometimes if it meant that I'd be getting a job that paid well and was something I could be good at. So tip number 3, I did everything and anything I could to get me closer to figuring out what it was I wanted to do with my life. And it therefore make a plan and start moving towards making a change to my career or my job. So whether that meant more training, which I mentioned earlier, or maybe some more study, getting some work experience from someone, or even just applying in a different sector, I wanted to kind of exhaust all the opportunities, exhaust all the possibilities to give myself the best possible chance of getting it right, I suppose. So some of the things I did really weren't that helpful. I'm not going to mention them because there's no point. But I wanted to highlight a few resources that I used that I genuinely found got me closer to understanding what I was looking for. So I will share those with you. Firstly, no doubt if you're already in the mode of changing careers, you've been thinking about it for a while, you've probably done a bunch of online quizzes, and I did too. What career should I change to? What job could I get with these qualifications? Blah, blah, blah. Lots of them. One of the ones that really did work for me was something called the Spark type quiz. This isn't part of the plan. Get off. Something that's been put together after 20 plus years of research and I was introduced to it by a podcast, which I'll talk to you a bit more about later. But the guy who kind of orchestrated it or initiated it is called Jonathan Fields. You may have heard of him. He heads up an organisation called the Good Life Project. And great stuff, which I'll talk to you a bit more about. But the Spark type quiz is based on the idea that all of us have a certain kind of imprint for the type of work, both in life and potentially as a job, that we can do that will make us come alive. The thing that will make us tick, the thing that will make us really passionate, the thing that will that we'll be motivated to do again and again and again. So basically the quiz looks at what it is about life work, your life work, that makes you tick. So they've researched that a lot. And I think personally I found the results extremely useful. And so that kind of verifies for me that they've done a great job with this. So what it turned up for me was that, number one, my primary spark type, which is what they're calling this kind of imprint that we talked about, is that I'm an advocate. My secondary one is that I'm a helper. Now, to be honest, the first time I opened the email and saw that, I was like, oh, I don't believe it. I'm trying to leave my career as a lawyer and they're telling me I should be an advocate. Well, that was fairly short-lived, luckily, because I realised, of course, that being an advocate doesn't mean that you have to be a lawyer. So being an advocate in this case, in any case, essentially means that I like to stand up for causes or people, particularly, as it turns out, people that can't stand up for themselves. Now, that is something that, as well as being a lawyer, I've been doing for the last 13 years. I remember thinking back to my childhood, examples of times when I stood up for people, whether that was at school or sometimes a cause that I really had very little handle on in terms of the political, sides of it, but felt really passionate about. I remember taking those stands for people. And though I knew all of that, somehow seeing that on the results of this quiz made me think, that's an important part of what makes me tick in life, is standing up for people, standing up for causes that I believe in. And maybe if I can incorporate that into my future job again, just as I had in the past, I will find another job that I find really rewarding. So it was a question of then thinking about how that could slot into other work. So there were lots of things that I applied for. There was victim support. I looked at jobs in relation to advocating for young people in care, all kinds of things that I hadn't necessarily thought about before, but I suddenly realised, actually, I think I'd find that really rewarding. So yeah, fantastic quiz. I would definitely recommend it. I'm going to link it in the description box along with everything else that I mention. And it might just make you reconsider what it is that makes you tick, what it is that gets you up in the morning, and going out to work. Those things that really set you alight, basically. So really, really good. There's also a book that goes along with that called Sparked, which I'll link down below as well. And the podcast is called the Good Life Project Podcast. I love it. I go on there and pick out a new episode every so often and listen to it. I nearly always find it useful. There's so many different topics covered. Can't recommend that enough. Not necessarily just about work either, but life and living a positive life, living a fulfilled life. Definitely recommend it. Something else which you might well have heard of before, or even done as part of a job assessment or during your career itself, are things like the StrengthsFinder assessment and the Myers-Briggs 16 personalities assessment. These kinds of things can help you clarify things that are unique to you. We all go through life being us, and so sometimes it takes something like that to make us realise, oh, that's something that I'm good at or that I'm particularly clear about that other people aren't. And that I find really helpful. It's useful to be self-aware. So anything like that, StrengthsFinder really helped me to clarify some strengths that I have that might support a particular job. So empathy, connection, cultivating the potential in others. Again, you can kind of almost see already that these things are starting to group together and form a fairly helpful picture of what I might look for in a new career. So yeah, I suppose the immediate thing that I started thinking about when I realised all of this was I might work for myself and I might not see my colleagues or my clients every single day, but having good connection with them, having a good relationship with them is important, and something like data entry is not going to be the one for me. Something where I'm sat on my own doing a job that really doesn't involve anybody else is not going to fulfil me, because I need that kind of connection in my life, and I need it to motivate me in the work that I'm doing. So maybe you have access to some of those assessments through your current work. If so, dig out the results that you got when you did them, or go do them, get the results, have a think about how that might affect your job search. And also, there are free versions of a lot of these online. With StrengthsFinder, I think I bought the book, and then you got the assessment as a kind of a freebie, essentially. I don't know whether that worked out to be a good deal, but that's what I did, and it meant I could read in more depth about the particular traits that I've got. Another book and person that I found really useful in my journey was Marie Forleo. I think that's how you say it, Marie Forleo. And her book is called Everything is Figure Outable. I'll link it in the description box. Watched a bunch of her stuff online, really useful. Yeah, definitely recommend that. Another good book is called At Your Best by Carrie Neuhoff. I have no idea how to say his surname, so I'm so sorry to anybody that does know how to pronounce it, and if I've got that wrong, I'm sorry. It's a great book. It's about getting the most from your time, your energy, in order to get your priorities straight, basically. Or rather, in order to give your priorities the focus and the time that they need, rather than realising that these are your priorities, but actually all your time and energy is spent feeding something else, and that's why you don't feel fulfilled or like you're getting anywhere. So in general, I would say his work, he's got quite a few books, but that particular one, At Your Best, is brilliant. Another resource, which I think we're all using a bit more in life these days, is podcasts, and I flip between lots of different ones. For this topic particularly, starting a new venture, starting a new career, figuring out what you want that to be, I cannot recommend Mel Robbins more. I cannot recommend Mel Robbins more. She's just amazing. Now, I think some people have written her off as being a bit gimmicky, because she's got a couple of books called stuff like The 5-Second Rule, that kind of thing. And I suppose you could call those things gimmicks, but they're also based on quite a lot of research. And actually, there's so much more to her work than any of those things. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at her website, listen to some podcast episodes that jump out at you. And for me, a lot of the benefit I got from that was about just getting on with it. Just go for it. Start that business, start that venture, start that YouTube channel. All of those things that you thought, oh, maybe I could do that, but what if it doesn't work? She's really encouraging about that kind of thing. And also she tells really great stories about people that it's really, really worked for. So you might find it inspiring. It might give you an idea of something that you'd never thought of before. And she also has a bunch of free resources about all kinds of areas of life, actually, that are really useful. Quite a lot of journal prompts, that kind of thing. So head over to her website and have a look. Watch her podcasts if you prefer to see someone talking than just listen to them on your headphones. They're all on YouTube, I think. So yeah, brilliant. Other people to mention, anything with Adam Grant, James Clear, and also Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. A different slant on things from him, but a lot about having a good life, a lot about small things you can change to improve your mood, improve your energy, that kind of thing, which I think when you're thinking about career, being in that headspace is not a bad thing. So when I was looking back through what I'd been listening to, I saw that and I thought, yeah, I'm going to mention it because I just find him quite helpful and quite easy to access. So as I said, all of the resources that I've mentioned in step 3 will be linked in the description box. Do check them out. Feel free to ask me any questions about those resources in the comments. I obviously am not representing those people. I'm not sponsored by anybody. And I can only give you my experience, but I'm happy to answer questions from my point of view. Number 4, and lastly for my tips for today, do not be afraid to think outside the box. Now, I think it's fair to say that I was already doing this to a degree. I was looking at things where I knew my transferable skills would work. But basically, there's a little story I should tell you here. I was regularly checking job sites, looking at listings locally to find vacancies that I thought might work for me. And essentially, I ended up applying for some jobs that I'd never even considered as a potential career. The one that I'm mainly thinking of when I tell this story is that I was looking on the local listings and I saw an advert for a job at a local private school. Now, this job was as a non-resident matron, which essentially means you are there to look after, advise, help, support the boys who board at, or girls actually, the boys or girls who board at this school. You are their on-site mother in a way. And they have a resident matron for each one of their schoolhouses, but they also have a non-resident matron so that there's 2 people to cover hours and that kind of thing. And I don't even know what made me read the description, but I did. And as I was reading it, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I could almost feel myself coming alive. And I thought, I would love to do this job. And I thought, lots of relevant experience. But if you kind of looked at the criteria and the fact that I only had some very old experience looking after small children, I didn't really have loads of relevant experience. But I applied and I got an interview and I got down to the last 3. And I've been looking out for jobs like that ever since. I'm not sure whether I'd switch to it now because I've got a new business and I'm kind of working to build that up. But the idea of doing something like that, it just had never ever occurred to me. I suppose partly because I didn't really think about the fact that those jobs existed, because I went to a state school. Private schools aren't that common. I just happened to live somewhere where there is one literally 10 minutes away, and the hours that they were advertising were really brilliant for what I needed. So yeah, please don't be afraid to think outside the box. And I suppose part of that is when you're doing your job searching, maybe sometimes don't put in those really tight search criteria in the job website, or if you're speaking to an agency, maybe just see what's available. Have a look. I would type in things like part-time jobs in the town that I live in, or remote work from home jobs, part-time jobs, and so much came up that was possible. Loads of rubbish, or rather loads of stuff that didn't apply to me came up too, of course. But there was so much that I could apply for that I didn't even consider or would never have considered looking for. So please think outside the box. It might just be that something will creep up on you and you'll realise this is something I'd love to do, and you might not have considered it otherwise. So please, please, please be brave and courageous and go a bit further in your mind about the sort of thing that you might be willing to consider. I do hope that this has been helpful. Like I said at the beginning of the video, changing career isn't easy. It's not overnight. It's not something that necessarily comes immediately to everybody. It can be confusing, mentally draining, really exhausting if you're doing a full-time job and also trying to apply for jobs every day or every week. You know, it takes up a lot of time and mental energy. And there were times when I felt really lost with it. And full disclosure, I did all of these things that I've mentioned, all 4 of those steps, and ended up starting a business in an industry that I still didn't get to when I did all of those things. Yes, it had been a fleeting thought, but it was only because I got an opportunity to do this work that I'm now doing it. And you can hear a little bit more about that in my previous career video, which I'll post a link to at the end. So yeah, really hope that today's been useful. Go back over it, write those 4 steps down, do some journaling, do some writing, do some searching online. Ask your friends and family, ask your current colleagues if you feel brave enough to do that. What do you think I'm good at? What do you think makes me different to the next person? What is it you like about the way I work? All of those things. Particularly about those kind of talents that you might not be considering worth looking at in terms of career, your friends and family might come up with all kinds of stuff that you are good at that you didn't realise you are good at. So yeah, go for it. Get all that information together. Please drop a comment to let me know you've been watching. Put me an upside down smiley if you've got this far. But also let me know what your plans are, what your thoughts are, what your dreams are for career change. And as I said, I'll be really happy to answer any questions that you've got from my own experience. Yeah, I really hope that you check out some of the resources that I've linked down below. I will see you when I see you. Have a great week. Bye bye.